for our morning discussion. This morning we shall be talking about a topical issue on the front page of the Inside newspaper. If I have I think I do have the Inside newspaper here. The front page says Cedi Depreciation, spare parts dealers attack Bawumia, says Ghana needs better economist. Cedi Depreciation, spare parts dealers attack Bawumia, says Ghana needs better economist. So that this particular issue would be topical on the morning show. We are going to dwell on it for about some 30 minutes, and also we shall be talking about the National Identification Authority. They have said that 30th September deadline by the Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Mrs. Esla Owusu Ekufo. I mean, they shall not, it would not be possible for them to register all Ghanaians before the 30th September deadline. Also, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, he is calling on chiefs. He's rallying their support to fight this canker of Galamsey. Yes, and talk about Galamsey. We know that Aisha One is still in the news. We know that we've heard that Attorney General have filed some fresh charges against her. We've also heard that some chief and his family have actually dug a hole from his room to a Galamsey pit. Like, I mean, like interesting things, interesting revelations keep on happening in Nkrumah every now and then. But so we are going to dwell on these topics for the morning's discourse. Make sure you connect with us via Facebook. Like earlier stated, we are live on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Send in your thoughts, send in your comments. And so before I introduce my guest, let me actually read excerpt of this particular story, which is on the front page of the Inside newspaper. It says, the spokesperson for the Spare Parts Dealers Association, Mr. Techiado, has chided President Nana Akufo-Addo's economic management team for being so loud about their prowess than the management of the economy. In an interview, Mr. Addo called on Akufo-Addo to consult better economists to turn the economy around and ditch Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia over his economic failures. According to Mr. Addo, the depreciation of the cedi is a testament that Dr. Bawumia is all talk and no action, adding that the government must eat the humble pie and consult economists in previous administrations for solutions to Ghana's current economic malaise. He added that instead of Dr. Bawumia putting in place measures to arrest the constant fall of the cedi, and the story continues on page 2, he's rather focusing on his presidential ambitions. The dollar is running like Usain Bolt. Now the problem is the government must eat their humble pie and consult more. Professionals, go to the past administrations. There are more people who can help, from the Rawlings administration, Kufuor administration, Mills administration, and the Mahama administration. Or if you go to our universities, there are better economists there. We need to give them 1 week. They can go to Peduase and bring solutions. Peduase has become the place where politicians go to Jojo. So I mean, in these harsh economic times, this person is suggesting that the government goes to Peduase and then Jojo, and then if possible come out with measures that would arrest the free fall of the cedi. Talking about the free fall of the cedi, though, I've seen the rate. I've seen that the Bank of Ghana says its rate is, I think, 8 point something, but when you go to the forex bureaus, it's, I think, around 10 point something thereabout. But this is a story as captured by the Insights newspaper. And if Ivan can do me the honors, Ivan, if you can do me the honors by connecting me to Dr. Nana Kwame Nkrumah. He is the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. I think that is his portfolio. He's at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. So if Ivan can get him on the line for us, I'll be very, very, very much happy, so that we can have that brief discussion about Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the depreciation of the cedi and all of its concomitant issue. But this morning, I'm so much delighted. It's very, very happy that I have my big brother here, Osman Ayariga. Good morning, Osman.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you once again. And I'm very grateful, particularly for the fact that you defied the rains to be with us, and you came very early for that matter as well.
Yes, we are in difficult times, so the only thing we can do to support these difficult times is to come out and advocate for the people going through this hardship. So, I mean, it's part of my social responsibility to make sure I come out and point out to the government some of the very bad things they are doing as a government and their level of incompetence. So, whether rain or shine, it's part of my responsibility to come out and speak.
Great. Mr. Anaba, Dr. Anaba. Either ways, I think I prefer the latter, by the way. I'm just all the time. I think doctor sounds better anyway. So like I earlier stated somewhere last week, if you haven't, if you don't have aspirations of getting a doctorate degree, perhaps you should, because I mean, it fits you so well. Good morning.
Good morning, Bless, and thanks for encouraging me to consider a PhD program. I will seriously give it a try.
You should seriously do that. Well, I'm meeting for the very first time Mark Awusi. He is the National Youth Organizer for the PNC. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
It's a delight having you for the very first time on the show. Have you been on the show before?
Yes, I think it was somewhere last 2 years, and that was the Saturday program. But
that was Alaji and Alaji.
Alaji and Alaji.
Okay, but on the morning show,
the morning show, this
is your maiden,
yes.
your maiden appearance.
Yes, and they will say you are a man Abba Fresh.
Yeah, Abba Fresh. Yes, so these persons have been here on multiple occasions, especially Osman.
That's right.
I think
I've been
You've been seeing him.
Yes.
You've been seeing him.
I've been seeing him. And it's a pleasure being on this platform. So,
great,
you've
great.
been having a lot of intellectual discussions that looks into bettering the economy we have and then fostering the development we are all yearning for. And
great.
For us to be part of the program, we share also our concerns and our views as well.
Right. I think we have Dr. Nana Kwame Nkrumah on the line. Good morning, sir. Hello? Hello, doctor. Well, I think we'll try connecting to him a tad later. But the conversation we are bothering on today, our topics for discussion, we are talking about the cedi depreciation because spare parts dealers, they have been on the heels of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. They said Ghana needs better economists. And also, we can't register everyone before deadline. So today is the 19th day of September 2022, 11 days more to that deadline, which the Minister for Communications and Digitalization, in her words, had to reluctantly, extend it, coming to an end. I mean, it's drawing to a close. 11 days more. I think we have Dr. Nkrumah back on the line. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I hardly can hear, Doctor. So if folks at the MCR can amplify the volume for us. Right. So, Dr. Nana Kwame Nkrumah, he's with the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. If you can hear me, sir, you've been calling for the head of the Vice President, saying that he's mismanaged the economy and that we need new
Please, the line is very faint.
Can you hear me, sir? Hello?
Hello? Yeah, the line is very faint.
I think we should try and work on that. And
I can hear you, but the line is very faint.
Well, is it better? Doc, is it better, please? Well, I think we'll try and connect to Doc in the course of our conversations, but let's set the ball rolling regardless. I think we can start a discussion with my very intelligent panel here in the studios. And so, I mean, I think I read excerpts of it before Mr. Mark Awusi came in, and also Mr. Anaba. But let me, again, regardless, read excerpts of it. So, spare parts dealers, they have been calling for the head of the president. I mean, before the 2016 general elections, during the I think the campaign period, we saw them really support the New Patriotic Party because they believe that when the party comes in power, they are going to turn things around for them. Well, things have not entirely gone to plan, and they are saying that we need new economists. They are saying that there are persons in previous administrations who are very good and could also proffer solutions to the many challenges that we are facing as a country. So why isn't it proper? I think we have Dr. Nkrumah back on the line. Good morning, Doctor. If you can hear me this time around. Hello? Well, I think we are still finding trouble connecting with him. Let us
Hello, good morning.
Later on the show in the course of our conversation. But like earlier intimated, so this has been the posture of. Hello, Doctor.
Hello, good morning.
I still can hardly hear him. I still cannot hear him. So let's do that conversation later
Hello,
on
good
the
morning.
show. Yeah, hello, good morning. Can you hear me,
The
Doctor?
line is not clear, but I'll try to make it up. So let's go on.
Right, so I've seen a news item. You've been talking about the vice president. You're saying that he's mismanaged the economy and that we need new economists. What is the reason for that utterance?
Please come again.
I'm saying that I've chanced on a news item. You are calling for the head of the vice president. You're saying that he's mismanaged the economy and that we need new economists. What is the reason for those utterances?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. The issue right now is that, in this country, we do a lot of importations because a lot of things that we use here, we are not able to produce because we don't have enough industries that are into production. And so most of the things that we are using here are import driven. So whenever the currency depreciates to a certain level, it means that a lot of small and medium scale enterprises will be collapsing. There are a lot of small scale enterprises who have sources outside that give them some kind of, for example, the spare parts dealers, they have sources outside that give them goods to sell and pay back later on. And so if maybe you give you something like $10,000 worth of goods to pay later on, and the cedi depreciates, it means that all that you are selling, sometime when you sell, if you don't check the exchange rate, it means that you will sell and you can't even pay back the amount. And sometimes too, a lot of people have gone for loans and they are paying in dollars. And so as the cedi keeps on depreciating, it means that a lot of businesses are collapsing. When you are even making plans, you can't even make concrete plans for even maybe 6 months or 1 year because you don't even know whether the city will be stable for you to make more future plans. And so if we have head of economic management team that gave us more assurance that the city was going to be stabilized, the economy was going to be stabilized, and that businesses and other small and medium-term enterprises had a lot of confidence in the team. But now things are going wayward. Skyrocketing prices of goods and other things. Even those who are small-scale producers, you can't even make long-term plans because items that we use to produce things are always changing. And so how do you even make profit and pay your workers? These are some of the things that is why a lot of industries are not even making gains, let alone make even so that they can pay back their loans and also pay their employees. And so a lot of businesses are collapsing now. A lot of people don't know what to do. Industry players are really under pressure. A lot of them, even if we don't take care, by the next 1 or 2 years, their businesses will collapse. And so we need a good economist, not just about theories, but practical economists that will make sure that industries can survive.
Right. Doctor, you are calling for a total...
That is when they can even employ a lot of graduates who are coming out. because it's becoming a hell now to be in this country.
Right. We are calling for a total overhaul of the economic management team, but I think you'd recall that I think it was only a few weeks ago that some $750 million Afrexim loan was injected into the economy. That is supposed to stabilize the city. We know that we have some $3 billion in the offing, which is also coming from the International Monetary Fund. Are these not enough to stabilize the city?
You know, the issue is, if you go for money from outside and you don't put it into production, but you bring the money and you keep on putting it into expenditure, no matter how much you bring from outside, the economy cannot stabilize. What we need is production. You know, if you look at the Asian tigers, if you look at all the people who are, all the countries that are making gains or developing, it's all about industrialization. It's not about going to borrow and come to spend. Because what we are seeing is that we are borrowing a lot from outside, always talking about $3 billion, always talking about zero bond, always talking about a lot of credit facility. And one thing is, we hail ourselves that we are able to borrow more from the international market. But all these borrowing, what are we using them for? What are we producing? Because if you don't produce, it means that you can't employ. And once you keep on importing, it means that always your city will be depreciating. And industries, small industries will be collapsing because they can't make a headway. And if industries are collapsing, how do we employ the youth? Because if the youth are not being employed, what they do is that they become a liability to the nation. They keep on sitting idle, always thinking about negative things, because they can't and do so that they can make any meaningful living.
Right. Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, for your time this morning. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is at the University of Ghana, Legon. He is the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. I think he works, that is his portfolio at the University of Ghana. Now, let us come back to the studio. Let us kickstart the conversation with our very knowledgeable guest here. They should also tell us what they think about this current, words from the spare parts dealers who are not excited about Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who happens to be the vice president and the leader and the head of the economic management team. Osman, if you could kindly.
Bless, good morning to you. Good morning to my brothers here. Good morning to your cherished viewers. Even before I delve into the incompetence of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, I would want to make this clarion call on all NDC members who were picking up nominations tomorrow at the various levels of the constituencies, from chairman to youth organizers to other youth to treasurer, that this is the reaffirmation of the strength and integrity of our party. So as they go out there to put themselves out to be elected, it should be done with the zeal, the passion, and integrity that the party needs, because this is a party that is about to oust the incompetent MPP. So we need to put out the very competent leaders at the constituency level. So I wish everyone well, especially with the youth organizers, the deputy youth organizers, and the other youth, as they go out there to put themselves up for election. So all I can say is to wish them well and hope that the best comes out of the various elections.
Now before we proceed, have you any ambitions of contesting any position yet?
Oh, yes. Okay. I will be contesting for the position of Deputy National Youth Organizer of the party. So,
great.
Yeah, because the party needs people like us to be able to fight the incompetence and the disappointment of the youth so far as this government is concerned. They promise heaven, but yet they are even unable to deliver the earth to us. They promised us jobs. They promised us a very bright future. They said they were going to turn this economy around in 18 months. Yet we've become very directionless, and we do not even know where the country is heading to so far as the economy is concerned. So bless. Back to the issue of the spare parts dealers. I quite remember that the spare parts dealers, or the spare parts association, put together a huge amount of money I think they contributed close to 200,000 Ghana cedis at the time, because they were disappointed in the NDC government at the time, and they contributed money to the campaign of Akufo-Addo, thinking that he was about to turn the fortunes of this country, which was going to favor them. I quite remember Akufo-Addo promising them that it was going to be a duty-free for all spare parts, and the spare parts dealers were not going to pay any form of duty, and for that matter, they bought into the idea and they voted for him. I quite remember the lofty promises when Akufo-Addo told them that he was going to turn Abosokan and Kumasi magazine into factories where they were actually going to be assembling carts, etc., etc. I remember all these lofty promises. I remember how beautiful they sounded and how beautiful they looked. Little did they know this was just deception cooked right from the pit of hell coming from Akufo-Addo. And one would think that even after he has won, he will try to apologize to them for not fulfilling those promises. But here you have the case where he continues to go out there and promise more and more and more. Clearly, Akufo-Addo has been a monumental failure, disappointment, and I don't want to use the word disgrace, but so far as you've disappointed the good people of this country, the good people of this country are very angry, and they currently find themselves in a state of despair so far as the economy is concerned. So I am not surprised that the spare parts dealers are currently calling for the head of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who at the time, every minute that he was given, decided to take shots at His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, calling him incompetent. But today, it's not we, the politicians, who are calling Mahmoud Bawumia incompetent, but it is actually the Ghanaian people, the business community, who hitherto contributed money to boost their campaign, today are calling Bawumia incompetent and that he should be removed. I even find it very surprising that the spare parts dealers are rather calling for the head of Bawumia. It's not only Bawumia who has been a monumental failure, but the MPP as a party and the government has been a monumental and colossal failure. So for them to single out Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and call for his head, I even find it very, very disappointing. Not only Bawumia has disappointed, the president himself has been a monumental failure. Mahmoud Bawumia has been a monumental failure. The ministers have been monumental failures. Their DCs and their parliamentary candidates, or even their MPs, lump them together, put them together, and they have all been monumental failures. So for you to now single out Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and think that he alone has disappointed in terms of the economy, I rather find it very disappointing. Put all of them, lump them, and they've all been monumental failures. So for me, it's not about changing Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, it is actually about changing the entire government. It is time for the Ghanaian people to understand that we do not run a country based on the lies and promises and beautiful flamboyant speeches of a president, but it actually requires competence, it requires goodwill, it requires the zeal, and of course it requires integrity, of which this current MPP administration lack any of them. They do not have any of these elements or any of these principles to run the country. Now, today the spare parts dealers are talking about the fact that the cedi is depreciating, and for that matter, it is killing businesses. Clearly, the depreciation of the cedi is as a result of the incompetence of the economic management team, which of course is headed by Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who instead of actually sitting down to profess solutions as to how to salvage the current situation, all he does is moving from church to church, preaching that he wants to become president, and the next MPP's primaries or presidential primaries shouldn't be about religion. I think it should be about competence, of which he doesn't have any. So for that matter, he can now go out there and say it shouldn't be about religion, because he rather is trying to introduce those dynamics into that election. Now, if you have a country or an economy where within the space of 3 months you have your cedi being the worst performing currency in the world, even worse than Sri Lanka, then I ask myself, what a country we are living in. If you have your currency being the worst performing currency, not in West Africa or Africa, in the world, worst performing currency in the world at a particular point in time, then you should know that you are living in very serious time, filled with so many incompetent people who are clueless, who are directionless, who who do not have a sense of what they are doing with the economy. That is where we find ourselves as a country. And it's not just about Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, but as a result, it's about the over 137 MPs of the MPP, and there are over 100 ministers, there are over 1,000 staffers at the presidency, and the president himself, all of them put together. Then we have a school of incompetent people forming the government. Now, we currently have inflation roaming about 34%. In fact, the exact figure is 33.9%. We are only better than Zimbabwe and Sudan in Africa. In Africa, we are only better than 2 countries, Zimbabwe and Sudan. And we all know what is happening in Sudan. We all know, as for Zimbabwe, it's a story we do not want to speak about. In the world, we are only better than 8 countries. Have you heard of these countries? Suriname is hiding somewhere in Southern America. We are only better than some of these countries. And, you know, some small countries that we do not even hear of. And this other country that at a point decided to adopt Bitcoin, I'm trying to remember the country, in Southern America. Yeah, you know, so we're only better than these countries. So in the no, there's this other country that adopted Bitcoin. There's this country that adopted Bitcoin because of how the Bitcoin decided to plummet. Then, so they have that level of it affected the economy. So we're only better than these countries in the world. Not in the world, we are better than only 8 countries, so far as inflation is concerned. Then you hear the MPP communicators come and want to insult us in the face. Initially, it was about John Dramani Mahama. He was the cause for all their economic woes. After that, they jumped to COVID. All of a sudden, they hop on to Russia, Ukraine. But we've already warned them not to use the Queen. The death of the Queen as an excuse. We've already warned them, so they are running away from it. So you realize that this is a group of incompetent people who came on the back of promises, lies, and deception. And today the realities of the economy is catching up with them. And they have nowhere to hide than to continue with the propaganda. Last month, they made so much noise about the fact that $750 million was coming in. In less than a week, that $750 million vanished. And now the city is depreciating again. So it's not about propaganda and lying to the people of this country. Bawumia's silence is too loud. He needs to come out and tell us what is really happening with the economy and his own input in trying to survey the economy. Now the only speeches or only lecture Bawumia goes about to do is about digitalization of the economy, how they are moving the economy, how they are trying to stop certain gaps of leakages, forgetting that he and his government have done nothing so far as the fundamentals and structures of digitalization is concerned. Fiber optic cable from Volta region to my hometown in Boku was done by the NDC. Accra Digital Center, where Esther Awusi has gone to name one of the blocks after herself, was built by the NDC. The NCA building, where they are there, is by the NDC. Even the Ministry of Communications building, where the minister is sitting and bragging, was built by the NDC. So if you've not done anything so far as digitalization of the economy is concerned, do not come out every day and try to have a lecture on digitalization of the economy, and for that matter, we should credit you with some applause. Bawumia has done nothing. His incompetence is so loud that I think it's about time for him to just eat the humble pie and resign. You will hear the association of people at Abosokai actually advising the government to look into the previous administration, such as Rawlings administration, John Dramani Mahama's administration. Why are they telling them to go back and listen to wisdom? Because they know we have done it before, we can do it, and even in opposition, we are advising them as to the way to go. They are just being ignorantly arrogant, that they cannot understand that they have failed, and for that matter, they do not want to take advice from anybody, so far as governance is concerned. But you see, it's understanding. If you don't know, and you know you don't know, and you want people to show you. But the problem with the MPP is that they do not know, they don't know they don't know, and they don't want to accept they don't know, yet they don't know. So that is the problem. That is where we find ourselves. Arrogance at its peak, ignorance at its peak. At the end of the day, it's going to yield incompetence. And we, the Ghanaian people, are going to suffer at the end of the day. So for the current economic mess we find ourselves in, they are all complicit. The finance minister has benefited from this economic mess. The more he borrows, the more money he makes. In fact, the 2 finance ministers, we have 2 finance ministers. Yeah, the country is in a mess economically. We have the president's cousin, what's his name, Oforiatta. The next is the one at the presidency, Edu Bryan, or who is the other finance minister? Yes, the other finance. No, there are 2 finance ministers. There's one at the presidency. There are 2 finance ministers. You don't have 2 finance ministers. I'll get it for you. There's Ken Oforiatta and there's Edu Bryan.
Yes.
Who is also a finance minister.
He was
Yes, he's currently finance minister. He's currently finance minister at the president. So we have 2 finance ministers. Yet we find ourselves in this colossal economic mess. So you have 2 finance ministers whose interest is about borrowing at the capital market, who at the end of the day, they make more money as a result of borrowing. They have their own companies being book runners of these loans. So what won't stop them from borrowing? For 8 years under the Mills Mahama administration, we only went to the capital market or the bond market, but only 3 billion. Sorry, 3.8 billion. Let's make 3.8 billion. Let's even run it to 4 billion for the purposes of this discussion. In 6 years, the NPP government has borrowed 13 billion from that same capital market. Yet there's nothing to show. There is absolutely nothing to show. At least there's Airport Terminal 3 to show. There's Atuabu gas plant to show. There's the Kumasi shoe factory to show. And these are projects that can actually pay for themselves. Akufo-Addo should tell us of all these monies he has borrowed, what has he used them for? So bless. I want to sympathize with the spare parts dealers. I'm a businessman and I know what it means for your capital to dwindle. By no fault of yours as a businessman, if your capital this year was 500,000 cedis, today it has depreciated to about 300,000 cedis. Because if your capital was 500, let's say your capital was 600,000 cedis, which was $100,000 in January. Today, your capital has reduced to about 400,000 cedis, which is about $60,000. By no fault of yours. Not as if you took a bad business decision to go and invest wrongly. It's not as if you've made losses or your staff are stealing your money, but as a result of the incompetence of people you believe were able or would have run this economy to a stable condition. So when we, the youth of this country, say we want jobs, it's not about putting together a few people and call it NAPCO and try to give them stipends, and at the end of the election cycle you dispose of them. But it's about actually putting together a good and stable economy such that you and I, even if I have 10 Ghana cedis, I can decide to buy a mango, peel it, sell it, and make 12 Ghana cedis. That is the kind of economy. Not the economy where when you buy mango 10 Ghana cedi in the morning, by the time you finish selling it by evening, when you go back to buy that same mango to come back and sell tomorrow, the mango is 15 cedis. That is what we are going through. So we are not creating an enabling economic environment for businesses to strive. No one is employing because businesses are not going. So what we are saying is that it is time for the good people of this country to understand that the promises and the lies of this government has finally caught up with them. It is time for them to rise up to the truth. It's time for them to rise up to the reality. Wake up and let's vote them out, because there is nothing new for them to offer. That is their best of people out there. There's no other substitute there. So if you think there's going to be someone who will possess the magic wand to turn things around, within that NPP organogram, there is none. Bawumia was their best, and he has shown to be very incompetent. So amongst them, there is none. So they shouldn't think that there is hope in the NPP government. It is actually a hopeless situation. It's a hopeless party, a party full of incompetent people, ignorant and arrogant at the same time.
Thank you very much, Osman. Very impassioned submission there. I'll do a few messages now. I'll come to Mr. Anaba next. Co-Mensa Pillar 2 begs to differ with Osman. He says, NPPs are hope. Let's stay away from NDC. Regards to Mr. Boache Jakon, our next president. Okay. Dogbe John Kujo says, good morning, blessed. To be honest with you, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has no solution to the free fall of the cedi. Theory is different from practical. You know, you can quote a whole book on the issue, but not the same as solving the problem. Sami Kui says, under NDC that Aisha one germinated root in Galamsey activity in Ghana. Galamsey menace fight must continue unabated by the NPP-led government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. People interested in Galamsey, why not there in planting cannabis? Okay, greetings to Honorable MP and Minister Mavis Sawa Kumsin and Honorable MC Anita Lavobo Emisa. Suleiman Abdul Rahim says, the silence of Dr. Bawumia about the economy and the depreciation of the cedi clearly tells us that nothing can be done anymore to save the country again. Ghanaians should just learn how to cope. Kofi Nyanko says, if we don't stop politicizing the fight against Galamsey, the fight against the illegal mining is going to be much ado about nothing. Therefore, the NDC should do everything possible to assist this current administration to fight against this menace. My regards to Dr. Akutu Efriye, the awaiting president of Ghana. Okay. Yawusi Swami says the move by Attorney General in filing fresh charges against the Galamsey Kingpin Aisha One is a good step, and I pray the court jails her if found guilty of the charges to serve as a deterrent to both foreign and local people engaging in illegal mining activities. Regards to Honorable Frank Anodompre and Honorable Maxwell Fusu Ajiman. This morning, people are sending a lot of regards to people. Bosheba Missy says, ex-President Mahama still thinks that Ghanaians have short memories, as he said, but nobody will sell his or her color TV for black and white. Nowadays, because of the good works of this NPP government. Regards to Honorable Kennedy Japan. Komensa Pillar 2 says, NPPs, I hope, let's stay away from the NDC. Okay. Suleiman Abdurrahim says, at least spare parts dealers should have invested the amount they use in sponsoring the NPP in 2016 to buy some dollars down. They would have made a lot of profit by now. And good morning to Janet Apia, who is watching, as well as Jacob Abeka, also doing the watching. Lydia Bweki says, good morning, Pan-African TV. It is very true that we Ghanaians are calling him incompetent because we are disappointed in Bawumia. This one here says, how can we have an accurate statistics and data about the Ghanaian population when the key players of these programs are on each other's neck? They should iron out their difference and work. Okay. Okay. There are a lot of you watching. Ramat, Adam, AU Farouk, YBL, Rauf, Stella, Lamisi, Atim Tono is also watching. Imran, Ababa, Editete. Hearty good morning to all of you. Let me finally do this message, which says that very good submission from Osman Ayariga, and this one came from Idi Chini, right? So on that note, Mr. Anaba, you have the floor.
Good morning once again, bless. Good morning to my co-panelists and your cherished viewers out there, most especially the people of Bongo who are watching live. Excuse me. I would want to set off rather on a very different note. I know, just to also wish my brother, who is setting the tone for his campaign for the Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC, the opposition party, largest one of course. I want to wish him well in this campaign. I'm sure he's setting the tone for this. I would help him win, but I can assure him that he would only operate from opposition. But that's how we should go about this game. On that note, I would want to say that I listened to my brother make a lot of allegations, some very usual and characteristics of all politicians, including both political parties that have had the opportunity to govern. Sometimes when we are given the floor, we make a lot of allegations or give out informations, profess solutions, and when we are given the opportunity to govern, we are hit hard by those same messages we once sometime preferred. I say so because it doesn't look like this country, we don't know our problems. it appears that how do we tackle them is the challenge. We all, NDC and MPP, have had the opportunity to govern this great country. I think NDC has had 8 year. That's 16 years, not so. MPP too is virtually on the last lap of the 16 year.
Going to position.
Please, I beg to differ. The good people of Ghana will decide whether we deserve to go to opposition or we'll have to remain in power to continue in breaking the 8. Now, you realize that some of these problems, I am not an economist, but if you look at the city politics, I would want to tackle it from the angle of my level 100, 200 economics. So I wouldn't want to delve into the professional area of the economics. But I want to say, basically, we all understand that the structural problem, as alluded by Dr. Nana Nkrumah, our speaker, the one you interviewed, we all know it is that this country is overly dependent on imports. And any country that is run on importation obviously will have this structural challenge with the economy as far as the its currency is concerned. Because all you do is to gather so much money, exchange into foreign hard-earned currency, and then we bring it back. We all know that our exportation is low vis-a-vis importation. Now, if we continue on this tangent, I am sure if NDC even comes in 2025, that's the unlikely event that the NDC wins power in 2025. This same problem will hit hard at them. If we do not all agree that we are going to do a lot of things to change the status quo. What do I mean by that? There are so many basic things. Yes, whilst we, the politicians, are at the helm of affairs and should be flagged when things are going wrong, I think that the general atmosphere in the country where people, the taste, that foreign acquired taste by most of us Ghanaians, impacts negatively on the cedi dollar situation. In so doing, we realize that Bawumia, His Excellency the Vice President, in opposition, proffered solutions. And when we came into power, what didn't happen? The cedi was at some point very, very stable until we got into this issue of where my brother is saying that we have overflogged it, COVID, and then the Russian-Ukraine. He says that the Queen, I'm not sure anybody in MPP decides to bring in the Queen. But basically, at a point we realized that His Excellency even jokingly said that the cedi was under arrest. It was based on the performance of the cedi as against the dollar. Now, the turnaround for this economy, I doubt whether it will be within 2 years, 3 years, or even 4 years. Because it doesn't take 1 day to build industries. It doesn't take 1 year. All these things would have to, so I would want to urge politicians across the divide that at this point in time, that if we believe that, okay, MPP made promises, we are in power, some of them haven't been fulfilled. NDC has also tasted governance of this country. The cedi wasn't stable. Maybe that's why, at the risk of doing equalization, it will be like, okay, that's when people then draw in. 8 years of MPP, 8 years of NDC. What is the exchange rate in terms of percentage? The depreciation. That's how come people do that type of equalization. I wouldn't want, the equalization would not help us. We should now be looking way forward. How do we, as politicians across the divide, come together and not do the bastardization of, because in an attempt and yearning for political power, we risk inviting ourselves into the area where, when we even win power, the people entrust power into us, we come and we are unable to deliver because there will be reality check on us. If the country is still on the tangent of import-driven and NDC comes, same challenges will confront this economy as far as the Cedi depreciation is concerned. Inflation, yes, most of our problems with the inflation, it is import. The inflation is imported because of this depreciation. He rightly alluded, if you look at somebody who had $100,000 just some 2 months ago, that would have been just around 700,000 Ghana cedis. Today, you would need about 1 million or in excess to do that. There is that loss of up to 300,000. What do we do? Now, the importer is a businessman. Once he comes to this country, he brings his goods. He is supposed to make profit. And in so doing, the margins will have to be passed on to the ultimate consumer. That is where you and I then begin to feel the pinch of this inflation and what have you. I would want to say that it is not about the incompetence. We have a structural problem with this economy that needs to be tackled over a long period of time and not short term. It looks like we are all doing short-term solutions. NDC, under NDC, Bank of Ghana, usually when there are challenges with the cedi, what they do is to pump more dollars into the economy. And these are artificial measures that do not go to deal with the root cause of the problem. And it is repeated today. I am sure in the unlikely event that NDC comes, same will happen. Let's just agree that we need to do about go more into production. Production is the way to solve some of the problems with this economy. Production will create jobs. It will make sure that we do not rely heavily on imports. And once we don't do that, you realize that this government set in motion the 1D, 1F. Basically, that's the idea. 1D, 1F, one warehouse, one constituency, one dump. All these were geared towards getting the youth to go into agriculture, one of the largest areas where which employs the largest sector of the economy, as far as the informal sector is concerned. This government has put in place measures that are supposed to move towards that direction. And so we would want to rather proceed that until these external forces came in, Russia, COVID, obviously the cedi was not falling at the rate it did. This year, it has taken such a nosedive. We're all feeling the impact. I would want to urge my brother not to be quick in passing judgment about incompetence and whatever not, because same fate await them. One day, even this MPP, even if MPP would break the 8, NDC obviously will come to power and they will meet these things. But just to do a quick rebuttal that MPP has not done anything as far as digitalization is concerned, I am sure that this issue is something that politicians, anything you mean, that is not true. Governance is a continuum, and I would not say that NDC didn't do anything in that area, but it cannot be true that MPP, that digitalization drive actually is something we should take serious and embrace as being done by, if we go deal with the paperless at the port. We all know that one of the major problems of this economy, our budget, is mainly donor supported. And if you have a domestic setting, if you run your home where you take loans to run the home, it's not sustainable. It means that you must be looking from within. If you look at the measures that His Excellency the Vice President has put in place, I'm sure we are moving towards plugging all loopholes in terms of our revenue areas that will help us to make sure that we generate more and depend less as far as our budgetary support is concerned. The paperless from the port, national identification card, which has become very topical and tied to this same registration. I'm sure it started under Kufuor, under the 8 years rule of NDC. If they had continued, I'm sure by now we shouldn't even be making the argument that whether or not the deadline will be met by them or not. I'm sure 8 years would have been enough to capture most people, and the registration would have just been ongoing. We have health insurance. Now people sit in their homes. You remember there was once upon a time that you have to go and queue just to get your health insurance ID card. These days people don't have to do that. You sit at the comfort of your home, you use the USSD code, you do renewal and do all other things. That is part of the digitalization drive. DVLA registration, Registrar General, VAT invoices. If you look at the construction industry and other places, people were faking tax clearance certificates, VAT invoices, and that, because if people are faking tax clearance certificate, it means that they are not paying their taxes all right. If they are not paying their taxes, government is losing revenue. And this digitalization agenda is, I'm sure, there was a news item recently about this VAT invoice now, how it will be dealt with to ensure that anybody who has a fake one will be caught.
Right.
We have the same problem with our vehicles. Many people were not doing roadworthiness and then insurance for their vehicles. All these things were revenue losses and causing problems. Now the police, just with USSD, you are able to determine which one is fake and which one is not fake. All in all, NDC have paid their dues. We have built upon this digitalization agenda, and I think that we are taking it to marvelous levels and plucking all the loopholes. Auditor General, Controller Accountant General, ghost names in the public sector payroll was one of the areas that is taken. Look, if we look at the number of people on the public sector payroll and the amount of money from the budget that is used to pay just about 600 or more thousand, it means that we need to do more. And yet we have a lot of ghost names in this area. It is this digitalization drive by His Excellency that is blocking all the loopholes that you are no longer having a lot of these ghost names making their way. Auditor General keeps tracking some of these things, and we are making a lot of progress in that area. I'm sure we will be there. It's not going to take one day. After all, Rome was not built in a day. Let's not just say that this government is incompetent and is bad and has not done anything in the area. I think that cliche by politicians has outlived its usefulness, because nobody will stay in government for 4 years, 8 years and do virtually nothing. I think that's not right.
Right. Thank you very much.
I want to rest my submission.
Right. Thank you very much. Interesting, very, very interesting submission there from Mr. Anaba. I'll do a few messages now. I'll come to Mark. Media houses should stop throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. That's John Mahama in doing so, because we reasonable voters don't have short memories anymore. I think the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Cedi Depreciation, actually even said that despite coming at a cost. Well, that is just by the way. And that message came from Master Red in Kaswa. Abdul Razak Mahama says, good morning, bless Alormasor. Please don't forget to tell KOD that I'm calling for him to relinquish the show to you and be a special guest. Well, this is his show. He can't relinquish it. Levy12 says, the simple name for this NPP administration is Stubborn Academy, full of heartless people. Usu best, Charlie. This your message. I'm sorry, I can't read it. Emrana Baba says, Mr. Host, I admire your humility in the moderation of discussions. All right, thank you so much. Mustafa says, it takes a wise man to know the current situation Ghanaians are facing. So it's only an unwise man or a deaf who will not be feeling it and can say what you. So this was in a response to someone's comment. Okay. Okay. Haile Selassie says, if the back of your teeth is not tasty, that is where you lick. No matter how far the NDC party's propaganda may reach, Ghanaians will never disappoint the NPP party in 2024 elections, because it is the best choice to lead Ghana for a better economic transformation. In regards to Honorable Kennedy Japan. Okay. Selom Agbenohevi says, Galamseyers and their accomplices are environmental terrorists and must be treated as such. Illegal mining must be made a treasonable offense, and I appeal to Parliament to, as a matter of urgency, pass this law. This is the only way we can stop this terrible menace. Our present and future existence are being compromised. Forests, cocoa farms, and the environment are being depleted. River bodies are being poisoned, and livelihoods are being destroyed. Wake up, Ghana. What shall we leave for posterity? This is a message that I 100% concur with. Anto also says, bless, tell the Tell Mr. Anaba that there's a difference between policy and policy implementation. Truly, NDC is far ahead of MPP when it comes to monumental programs and projects that sustain an economy and protect it from excessive importation, which is the craze by the NPP administration. For example, by the time the NDC were leaving office, rice importation had been reduced to 45%. Now it has risen to 75%. Hearty good morning to Ejewa Mavis, who is watching, as well as Samuel K. Yabwa. He's also doing the watching. Osman Imoro, Johnny Kujo, Sika Jorgensen, and J. Jamal are all watching. Mark.
Bless, let me say a very good morning to you and then to my big brothers here. Let me also not forget to say a good morning to our cherished viewers. I have said on several platforms that if we feel as a country to appreciate the fact that these are our eminent challenges, there is no way we would have a solution to our problems. And if I really heard very well the interview you played, or the interview we had with Dr. Kwame Nkrumah,
Yeah.
he said that he's proposing that we come together to form consensus or to build consensus about how we can actually look at the saving of the depreciation of our currency. We must also admit the fact that, of course, the NDC and the NPP have had the opportunity under this republic, constitution, to manage the hems of affairs of this country in terms of its development and even the management of the economy, which directly implies on the current discussion. The value of our depreciation of the currency, in my opinion, is a very much important issue to me, and I'm very sure it is as well important to our viewers and every meaningful Ghanaian. It is very important because this is the currency that determines the performance of our economy. And when we are talking about determining the performance of our economy, we cannot shy away from talking about our imports and then our export levels, the type of external investment that the economy ought to attract, and then also to look at our interest rate differentials. Prices of goods and services are also very important when it comes to issues of this discussion. And immediately, as a country, your currency begins to fall, like we are experiencing in Ghana, automatically we realize that imports becomes more expensive and export rather goes very, very less expensive. And it is not by any reason that some countries will decide to look at increasing their export in order to have some increases in their foreign exchange. Now, according to Bloomberg, just last month, gave us a report about our current situation as far as our economy or our Cedi depreciation is concerned. And it roughly indicated that the Cedi have depreciated by a minus 28.82%, which is against the major trading currency, and that I mean the dollar. But now the current economic difficulty is largely influenced by certain factors, and these are the factors that we need to look at. Of course, yes, it is the performance of our Cedi, and then the over-reliance on services that we render, especially in some of our sectors of our economy. We can also look at how excessive government expenditure is, and then how we have been able to, in our own way, dollarize the economy. That even when you go to some hotels to have a rest or spend some night, you are charging dollar. And these are all factors that have contributed to the depreciation of our cedi. We can also not decide to shy away from what I call corruption-related activities. Because if we decide to exonerate people who are found culpable of some corruption-related activities, then the economy will simply sink, which of course will give us a negative impact on us cedi, which have now depreciated to by a margin of minus 28.82, as indicated by Bloomberg. Is it that the country lacks a strategic economic focus? That for every economy to develop, for every economy to strive, it depends on how industrialized the economy becomes. We live in a country where almost everything is imported. So we can say that the economy or the country have now changed into an import-driven economy. And you do not expect your currency to do well when almost everything in the country that is consumed is being imported. Can there be any way that the managers of the economy can put heads together with some strategic implementation plans to ensure that we improve the current economic woes that have bedeviled the country? We live in a country where the youth and the energies that is embedded in the youth is going waste because there are no jobs. Because the youth today do not find good jobs to engage themselves in. And if the country continues this way, then it means that we are moving towards a trajectory that will lead us into the ditch. And I will not put the blame on anyone than the two managers who have had the opportunity to manage our economy. Our cedi depreciation started way back in 2007 when the country, led by the former president John Ejekunkufo, decided to have our cedi changed, where we had 10,000 to 1 Ghana cedi, and by then 1 cedi was even bigger in value than the dollar.
Yeah.
So what then do we see? It means that the coins that we spent those days, like today, you can't use 10 pesos for anything.
Oh, now you see, back in the day, and you see, just give me a minute of your time. If you had 50 pesos, which was 5,000 then, 50 pesos was enough to take you to school and back.
Thank you.
Now you see 20 pesos, and by the way, 20 pesos was 2,000 cedis back in the day. You could see 20 pesos on the floor just like that. Nobody wants it. It is valueless. Yes. 20 pesos, 50 pesos has become valueless. So you just see it on the ground, you just walk past it, because when you take it, what are you going to use it for? Nothing.
You see, bless, it's a worrying situation. And sometimes when we meet like this as young people, I would always want to prefer that we look at preferring solutions to some of these endemic challenges rather than putting blames and juxtaposing whether I was right or you were wrong. Whether you were right or you were wrong, this is the current situation of our economy. The youth of this country are on the street without jobs. Industrialization is nothing good to write home about. Companies are no more working. If you go to the thermal industrial area, factories that were performing then have all closed down. And what do you expect to see? companies that then, in the days, do produce, today does not produce anymore. But rather, we've had interest in importing more than we export, which of course will break the economy. But as I said, we need to come out by mapping a strategic way of salvaging the current economic situation that we find ourselves in, and of course, what has led to these current economic challenges. That is the depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. Local production is today nothing to write home about, and the readiness for our management or managers of the economy to ensure that we invest more into revamping the local industries we have fallen down, because they have all decided that it is very good we look at importing, because some individuals are benefiting from the importation of goods that we have in this country. The NPP administration coming into power made a lot of promises, and it is out of these promises that the association of
spare parts
dealers contributed about 2 million Ghana cedis to support the NPP. Only the name of thinking that when they have they get the opportunity to come to power, they will be able to manage the economy much more better than what the SL administration led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was doing. We also saw and heard the current Vice President, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, on several platforms, juxtaposing the performance of the cedi to the dollar, telling the whole people of Ghana that the NDC have automatically messed up the economy, and that when they're given the opportunity, they're going to do much more better than we were experiencing then. But this is where we find ourselves. And he said himself that when the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. The question is, who have the exchange rate exposed now? Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is calling for the head of the economic management team. And of course, it is led by the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. I have said on different platforms again that if the Vice President, whose ambition is to lead the NPP, is jeered and have a serious interest in leading the NPP as their flag bearer, he should quickly come out so that he leaves that office of the Vice President for us to get a different person who can be the head of the economic management team. We are not running away from the fact that he is talking about digitalization, but the fact still remains that digitalization was in the system before the inception of the NPP in 2017. No one can say that the NPP administration have done nothing about improving the digital space that we have. And nobody can also come to argue that the Israel administration led by the President John Dramani Mahama didn't do anything in terms of digitalization. Even if not at all, we saw the Accra Digital Center, which was built by former President John Dramani Mahama. We saw the revamping of the passport, services and the systems that is rendered. These were all things that were done by the former administration, and the NPP is also contributing theirs to it. But you see, what we are discussing now is the depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. What was the exchange rate before the NPPs assumed office? And what is the current rate of the Ghanaian cedi to the major trading currency? And that is the dollar. So I think that we need to relook at the way we're doing our things by, number one, going back to look at our industrialization programs. We can also look at the planting for food and jobs they brought. One district, one factory. These are all beautiful policies. But the issue is, monies have been invested in those policies. But we've not realized anything from it. It has given us no result. And this is a big challenge. So for me, I think the call on the Vice President to focus on his presidential ambition and that he should look at resigning is not something so bad. He should look at doing that. And we have said on several occasions that we cannot continue to have an economy like this and still be just, hampering ourselves or counting ourselves that we are doing very well. And of course, Bloomberg, as I said, indicated that the cedi now is one of the third worst performing currencies in the world, apart from Sri Lanka. And what is the situation of Sri Lanka? A country where the Prime Minister and the President have fled away from the country. And if Bloomberg is, comparing Ghana to Sri Lanka, then I think that it is a big problem. So let the NPP, as the political party in power, revisit some of the policies that they brought. That, of course, brought all Ghanaians together to say that, look, looking at the policies that you have, we think you would best serve our interest. And concentrate on that. I believe that that would be the best panacea to the eminent problems we have as far as our economy and then the Cedi depreciation is concerned.
Right, thank you very much, Mark. Wonderful submission there. We have just some 19 minutes more. Let us get straight into our next topic for discussion. We can't register everyone before deadline. The National Identification Authority, they have been speaking, and it seems that the Communications Ministry and the National Identification Authority are not working in tandem, because if you see leaders of these two institutions, I think this one comes to say this, the next day this one comes to say another. So Kenneth Atafua, he happens to be the Executive Secretary at the National Identification Authority, and he said that it is practically impossible for the remaining Ghanaians who haven't had or who do not have their Ghana cards to have them before the 30th September 2022 deadline, which is 11 days away anyway. And his words, let me read it. He said, "We had said way back in March that it was impossible. I have said it is like expecting a maiden to make a baby every 3 months." He added during a press conference last Friday, he said, "That is not how the physical and logistical system has been designed to respond. We cannot do that." He says the NIA Executive Secretary said there is no way that NIA can register the over 2 million people aged 15 and above left to be registered. It is impossible for these people to be captured before the end of the month. Professor Atafua also said the National Communications Authority was fully aware of these limitations when prescribing deadlines for the re-registration of SIM cards. So these three institutions, the NCA, which is the National Communications Authority, the NIA, National Identification Authority, which is tasked to the primary objective of ensuring that every Ghanaian age 15 and above has a Ghana card, which is also the sole document for the re-registration of the SIM cards. He said, Professor Atafua also said the National Communications Authority was fully aware of these limitations when prescribing deadlines for the re-registration of SIM cards. He, however, said such matters were out of his control. So ostensibly, obviously, these three institutions are not working hand in hand to ensure that Ghanaians have their cards, then people also get to register their SIM cards as well. So 30th September, which deadline the minister, quote unquote, had to reluctantly extend, is 11 days away. The day is nigh. but a lot or scores of Ghanaians still do not have the card. Osman.
Bless. You see, when I use the word incompetence, people will think I am abusing the word. But if this is not incompetence and this is super incompetence, why do I say so? You have the Minister for Communication with oversight responsibilities of agencies such as NCA. Of course, NIA is currently under the Ministry of Interior.
Yeah.
And you all belong to a government of which you all are supposed to cohabitate and work together. You do not go about giving orders and deadlines when you know you do not have absolute control over the system and how it should be effected or how work should be done. NIA is not under the Ministry of Communication. So for you as a Minister for Communication to say that you are issuing this date as a deadline for which every SIM card should have been registered with the Ghana card, the first or fundamental thing you should have done was to have made sure that every citizen is registered with the Ghana card. Or find out from the data of which NIA would provide for you that we have been able to register every single Ghanaian. If you cannot do that, then what you need to do is to be able to identify Ghanaians who have the Ghana card yet have not registered their SIM cards. Then you can go about issuing deadlines, ultimatums, and threats. You do not sit within the comfort of your room and your office issuing ultimatums, deadlines, and threatening to block people's SIM cards, when in effect it is by no fault of theirs. And from what NIA is telling us, it is impossible for them to have registered every Ghanaian before her so-called deadline. So if you have a government where there's no proper communication from a communication minister between herself, NIA, Minister of Interior, if this is not incompetence, then what is it? A Minister of Communication who is unable to communicate even amongst agencies, then what are we going through as a country? If this is not incompetence, what is it? We have always said, in fact, our initial position was that we didn't see the reason for re-registration, because if you already have the Ghana card, then the telco should be able to just pick that data and register for you automatically. Once I'm able to provide my number to the telco, that this is my Ghana card number, this is my phone number, merge the details. Simple as that. But you have agencies who are unable or do not, in one way or the other, want to share data. So then it is we, the citizens, who are going through that hardship or that difficulty of moving from one point to the other just to register in the name of capturing of biometric data, etc., etc. Because if you have a Ghana card and you even have to go and procure your passport or renew your passport, from what we are made to understand, then I have no business even going to the passport office. Passport office should be able to liaise with NIA and capture my details and take my pictures. Simple. Then I just go to passport office and take my printed passport. But here's the case. You tell us that this is digitalization of the economy. Meanwhile, what we are experiencing is not digitalization of the economy, but a suffering of the citizens who have to move from one agency to the other to have their biometric data captured. If this is not incompetence, what is it? And I say it's super incompetence from the MPP and their communication minister. So I am not surprised. In fact, this is not about victory for Stubborn Academy. But we are, because Stubborn Academy weren't making those arguments based on baseless facts. We had the facts and we told you that it is not possible, it's not tenable for you to block SIM cards, because it is impossible for every citizen to have registered his SIM card. Not because they do not want to register, but because NIA will be unable to provide Ghana cards for everyone. That was our position. Not that we're strictly being stubborn because we didn't want to register, but we were pointing out to the communication minister the flaws within the system, of which has been caused by their own incompetence. So I am not surprised that NIA is saying what they are saying. So they would have to extend the dates and make it possible and convenient for everyone to register for the NIA card. Then we can now go about to talk about the re-registration.
Right. Thank you very much. Dr. Anaba.
Yep, Anaba. That's okay. Yes, bless. I'm sure last week we were here on the same topic, and I made my position very, very clear. And not to mince words about that or to re-echo, I think that I had stated last week that I don't see end of this month as a feasible deadline, and that we should, the Minister of Communication should be, in his own words, reluctantly again extend this towards end of year so that we observe and see how it pans out. If you look at this Ghana card, SIM card registration saga vis-a-vis the Ghana card, we have three groups of people. We have those, the first group I want to look at is those who, by no fault of theirs, have no access to the Ghana card. And since the Ghana card is the condition precedent for the registration of SIM cards, that means that these people automatically cannot register their SIM cards. That is the first group of people. This group of people, no fault of theirs, on what basis will the state decide to say that by 30th of this month, their numbers will have to go off or be blocked? I think that there will not be any justification whatsoever for this group of people to go through that process. And this group is nonetheless not in the minority as we speak now. It is not like there are just some minority groups somewhere. There are so many of them who still do not have access due to no fault of theirs. There is a second group that I look at as the people who have access to the Ghana card but have the Ghanaian attitude of last minute. And you know the usual Ghanaian distance, oh, last minute. And anything we have to do, we believe in the last minute. I think some of us, once in a while, become victims to this type of attitude. But it is something in the Ghanaian. So I think this group, these deadlines by the Honorable Minister, that's a good thing. At least it pushes people. We remember the last deadline towards the 2 days to the due date. You realize that most of the telcos were jammed up with human beings who were Ghanaians who were trying to get it registered. And soon after there was an extension, I think that the pressure slowed down. So the good thing about this continuous, if you want, advisably use of threat and the giving of deadlines by the Honorable Minister is that it pushes this other group of people who have Ghana card but are last minute people, to do the needful. The final group that I see are the group that have Ghana card but, if you like, advisedly, the criminal group, because they benefit from the non-registration of this. Those who use the same box fraud and other things, they are not interested in registering. Whether or not they have this Ghana card, they are not interested in registering. These are the group that we have no sympathies towards, because actually this policy is intended to curb some of these things. So it is only good that we ensure that as much as possible we rope all these groups in once we are considering the deadline. I am sure 30th, the Honorable Minister will do the needful and do an extension to end of this year, and then we see how whether reluctantly or not, all that we are interested in, she should do an extension towards end of this year, and then we see how it pans out. If by then NIA is able to do 90+% of registration, why not? We can now zoom in on the few who are left. Right. That is my take on this matter.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Yes, the issue of NIA issuing Ghana cards for registration of SIM cards, I think that needs a much more time for discussion. But unfortunately, today is not the best day for us. Look, bless. In 2024, the NIA was able to register. 2020. The NIA was able to register about over 14 million people within a month or two. When they started, and we realized that as condition precedents to get or acquire your voter ID card, you need to get the Ghana card. You realize that people were mad rushing to go and get their Ghana card. The secret here is that today we have people who are at various complaint centers of the NIA indicating that their cards cannot be verified when they want to, access it or use it in any way. The NIA, upon issuance of that Ghana card, didn't do verification for some of the people. And that is the reason why we have people queuing to get their cards verified. If you want to come out with any policy or come out with any kind of system, why don't we take our time to explain the thing to the core people that are going to be the beneficiaries of this particular project? The NIA, again, is an organization or a state institution that doesn't have time bound. It doesn't have time bound. Per the LI, the NIA is mandated to register people onto a database. And day in, day out, there are people who turn out to be 18 years. Now, they say they are registering people from 15 years and above. So day in, day out, there are people who turn 15. And it tells you that the NIA's duty or the job they are doing is time bound. They don't have any time whatsoever that at this particular point in time they should be able to finish with the registration of Ghanaians. No. What actually is the telcos using this registration for? There is a rift, there is a problem between the NIA and then the Ministry of Communication. And here is the problem. The NIA decided that, look, we are the state institution that is mandated in capturing the bio details of every individual in this country. And so whatever registration you want to do for the telcos on behalf of the Ghanaian people, we have the power, probably the software to do it. The ministry says no. They have already contracted someone to come and do it for telcos. Didn't you hear that even the telcos were complaining that what the communication minister and the ministry is doing is wrong, and that it is going to endanger their services that they are rendering to people? Vis-a-vis, if about 100 or 50 people's numbers are blocked, do you know the amount of money the telcos is going to make from those individuals? And so the telcos themselves are not happy with what the Minister of Communication is doing. Not running away from this particular fact, the Electoral Commission have also come out to say that the only document for us to get registered onto the Electoral Commission database to acquire a card for voting will only mean that you should bring a Ghana card, which I have supported. But the fact here is that the NIA is not ready to deliver within the time bounds that either the Electoral Commission or the National Communication Minister is asking us to do. Today, there are people who have genuine reasons and are at various centers trying to get their NIA cards verified, trying to get their mistakes that due to some incompetency of the NIA officers spelled their names wrong and their ages and some informations, wrong on their NIA card, are on the street queuing from night to the following days, and they are not being able to resolve their problems for them. We are calling on the Minister of Communication, Honorable Awusi, that the time she has given will never be able to work. Because if we should even give Ghanaians next year to go and do these registrations we are talking about, there would be people who will be left out. Look, let's look at the practices that people practice outside Ghana. Do they rush people or cage them to go into doing some of these registrations? No. Is it that Mark Awusi's phone number would have to be registered at all costs, and that if I don't register, I'll be having challenges with my number? No. Is it that after a month, Mark Awusi will stop using his phone or his number, and so at all costs he should go and register? It is no. It is a number that I've decided to use. Likewise, yourself and others. And if you have an NIA that has a mandate of continuously registering people onto their database, that is seriously doing their job, although there are challenges, why would the National Communications Ministry or Minister be rushing us or gagging us to go into doing all these registrations? I don't think it is a good idea, and it is going to affect a lot of people, especially the telcos. And so the Minister of Communications should come back, resume on this decision, and ensure that whatever date she has given us, the people of Ghana cannot meet it, and it should be withdrawn. Probably if it is next year or next 2 years, let us make it very open, that any given time you have access to your Ghana card, you can go in there and do a registration. Look, the telcos, what they are doing is not that they are picking any data for anybody. They are picking data for themselves, and it is not being synchronized to the NIA. My brother made the point that is my brother, aspiring deputy youth, national youth organizer for the NDC. He says, if we have a system like what the NIA is doing, picking up bio data, then there is no need we go to the passport service. I think I would slightly disagree, in the sense that there are some information that the passport services would require that the NIA probably do not have, and that is why you need to go there. I registered on the National Health Insurance, but when I got there, they asked if I had a Ghana card. I said yes. So they took my Ghana card, and then the Ghana card I am using now is the same number I am using for my NHIS. Now, we have met Dr. Ghani, who is the corporate director of the NIA, and he had indicated to us clearly that, look, we are looking at synchronizing various sectors of the economy, especially the passport, the NHIS, the driver's license, onto the Ghana card. In fact, we don't have time. But what we are saying is that the communications minister should rescind on her decision, because Ghanaians cannot meet that deadline she's giving us.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark. On that note, I'll do a couple of messages, then we call it a day. Critical says, we hear planting and sale of cannabis is lucrative than gold. Why are the people not daring planting cannabis rather than going into galamsey if they have the testicular fortitude? Okay. It is illegal to actually do so. Godfrey Kwashiga says, Godfrey Kwashiga Eja in Beach Road. Do you know that MPP's definition of corruption is the use of fraudulent means to acquire wealth? They have created special vehicle purpose shrouded in secrecy to steal from Ghanaians. It involves the application of all manner of tricks and scams to steal the wealth of others. We have corrupt acts like excavators developing wings to fly in thin air, contaminated fuel evaporated in PDS, fraudulent deals, yet we have not seen any single person being prosecuted. Ghanaians, we should bear it in mind that 2024 is a communal labor to vote them out so that they can account for their deeds. It's possible, because together as a unit we can kick them out. Greetings to Mr. Kujo, NDC coordinator in Zenith electoral area. Kwame Nako just says, if NPP says it has fixed the economy, the simple the simple code broke. How come that just 2 weeks of partial lockdown, that strong economy couldn't support it? How can you call yourself a better manager when you can't simply fix what 2 weeks partial lockdown had caused? The COVID came with two different phenomena, which one difficulties on two axes. Why are we seriously blaming COVID for difficulties and not praising it for the access? They should give us a break. 2024 is just staring at them to judge them. Good morning, Pan-African TV. God continue to bless you for your good work for this nation, Ghana. Thank you so much. Samuel K. Yabua says the inconsistency is too much. Esla, I think, is the headmistress of the stubborn academy. She should rather eat a humble pie and let the NIA do their work than imposing stress on the ordinary, leaving their own sheer incompetence. Aaron Babako says good morning to you, Madam Ednora Chika Yabuet. Okay, thank you so much. Samuel K. Abba says I did my Ghana card way back in 2020. This year in May, I tried to link my Ghana card to my SIM, but lo and behold, it never worked. I went to the NIA office, who told me it's valid, but to the whole 6 weeks I spent, it's never materialized. Okay. Good morning to Juliana Belinda Obri, who is watching. Alasan is also doing the watching, and tons of you across the length and breadth of the country, across the over 54 countries in Africa and every part of the world who actually joined us. But before we go, the Ogbechocho Festival 2022 official launch at the Awomefia chiefs, elders, and the entire citizenry of the Anglo State will be launching the 60th edition of the Ogbechocho Festival in Naketi Village. Okay, the Ogbechocho Festival is a migratory festival that has been celebrated by the Anglons for many years. The festival also serves as a rallying event of citizens of Anglo, both at home and abroad. It is one big event that attracts lots of tourists from far and near to see the beautiful display of culture and tradition. The theme for this year's celebration is 60 years of Anglo Ogbechocho Zan. Uniting for development, sustaining our unique cultural commonwealth for future generations. The launch date is the 21st of September. 21st September is Kwame Nkrumah's birthday. It also doubles as Pan-African Television's birthday. I will be celebrating our 6th anniversary. The time for the launch is 9 a.m. The festival itself will be celebrated in November. Grand Deba is on the 5th of November. So this is like a prelude to the grand event which will be happening in November, but the launch date is 21st September. You would want to join, right? So thank you so much. Thank you to my very intelligent guests. They have advanced very cogent arguments for this morning's topics that we have discussed on the show. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Dr. into bracket Anaba. Thank you, Osman Ayariga. Thank you, Osman Ayariga. It's been such a ball. See you same time tomorrow. Until then, if you want to take a decision, make sure that that decision you take helps you and helps all of us as well. Do have a pleasant morning. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.